Those of you who don't know me, my name is AJ. I have the honor and privilege of being Kyle's best man this evening. First off, I'd like to congratulate Kyle and Natalya. If we could all give them a round of applause. I'd like to also congratulate Kyle himself. After all your hard work and dedication in pursuing Natalya, she is now officially stuck with you for life. Good job. I'd like to also thank every one of you for coming. I know there's a lot of people coming from out of state, from Florida and Illinois, and especially with this wedding being downsized, I know every single one of you means so much to Natalya and Kyle. So thank you so much for coming. Natalya. I'd also like to thank the parents of the bride and the groom. I'd like to thank the Spadaros, Mr. and Mrs. Spadaro. You guys did a fine job in raising a nice young woman like Natalya. And then I'd like to thank Greg and Ms. Kay, if they're around. But you guys tried your best. Thanks. So now Kyle asked me to be his best man about 8 months ago. And at the time, I was living overseas. But right before I went to Turkey, Kyle had recently become a Christian. So he was a whole different person than the person I knew. And at the time, he was then engaged to Natalya. So he's also in a relationship that I had never shared with until now. And so when Kyle asked me to be his best man, of course I said yes. But I had no idea what I'd say for a speech. And so now here we are. I still don't know what to say. But I figured I'd take you guys back to how it all started. So me and Kyle met about 20 years ago. Kyle would come from Illinois to Washington every summer to visit his family. And Kyle was like the popular guy of the neighborhood. Everyone waited for Kyle's arrival to Washington, even my own mother. She knew that if Kyle was around, we'd be doing a lot less dumb things. But Kyle was a stand-up guy. He was charming with the parents, so it allowed us to get away with a lot of things. But like many good stories, this involves a case of cold ones. Now, as many of you know, me and Kyle are relatively new Christians, and our life didn't always look like this. But it was the summer of my senior year. Kyle flew to Washington for a week, and we were sitting on my front porch, and we were talking about life, our future, and most possibly this very day. But as we got later into the night, we ended up finishing an entire case of beer by ourselves. But it was at that moment I was filled with so much liquid courage that it led me to ask out a girl I was longing to talk to. She was a Christian, and she started taking me to church, and I started to read the Bible. And it wasn't long after that where I gave my life to the Lord. Fast forward 1 year from then, Kyle had moved to Washington, and he was working night shift, and I was a newer Christian looking for a church. Now, I would have to call up Kyle every morning to wake him up. And every Sunday, we would go look for a new church. Now, this period lasted about 2 months, and we went to a handful of churches. But I think after a while, Kyle got tired of me waking him up on Sundays. But what Kyle doesn't know is that the next church that I would go to would be the one where I'd meet Natalya. Now, when I met Natalya, Kyle wasn't exactly hot stuff at the time. Natalya was good-looking, intelligent, had her life together. She was everything Kyle wasn't. But when I met Natalya, she was one of those most sweet, caring girls I'd ever met. She always made me feel welcome at church, and she was brutally honest, for better or for worse. But whenever she gave me advice, I knew I could trust her. She was down to earth, real, and her love for God was genuine. And it was a huge plus she could hang with the boys. Now, in the period that I got to meet Natalya, me and Kyle had not spoken for about 2 years. Kyle was working a different shift than I was, and we'd both moved out of our houses. But when me and Kyle reconnected, it was like nothing really changed. I was so used to seeing Kyle only in the summertime, so it was nothing to us. We picked up where we left off. But as Kyle started to hang out with me again, he started coming to church, and he got to meet my friends, including Natalya. It wasn't long before Kyle would also give his life to the Lord. And I remember the day where I got to baptize him in the ocean. We got in my car afterwards, and his face was glowing. He had this big smile on his face. He looked at me and said, "I'm saved." I know that it was one of the happiest days of Kyle's life, but it was also one of the happiest moments of mine. In the next 6 months or so, Kyle would end up going after Natalya, and the rest is history. But Kyle, I couldn't be any prouder of the man you become. You've grown so much in the Lord, and I know that no man will be a better husband to Natalya than you. But I tell this story for two reasons. The first for Natalya, because when God saved me and Kyle, it was kind of like a package deal. A 2-for-1 special. He didn't want me without Kyle. So as you look forward to a lifetime spent with Kyle, I hope you also look forward to a lifetime spent with me. But I just wanted to say that I love you both. I'm happy for you. And I will most definitely always be there for both of you. I couldn't imagine my life without either of you. So if you all join me in raising a glass of water or whatever you have. Here's to Kyle and Natalya. To a life of love, joy, and many babies. Cheers.